your friendly neighborhood quarter guy here, and happy Easter weekend, everyone! Well, a few things have happened this week, but what I want to talk about today is news about the NX and the Wii U that's been proven false, and why it bugs me. You see, first off, there was a report from Nikkei magazine in Japan that was indicating that Nintendo was halting the production of the Wii U late this year. I don't think it would have been a good idea if it were true anyway. You see, the Wii U has only been on the market like 4 years now, and I believe that for a console generation, it should have its 5 years. Thankfully, Nintendo would later deny this report. So, yeah, we should expect the Wii U is going to get its 5 years, especially with Star Fox Zero coming out next month in April, and titles like The Legend of Zelda Wii U, which still doesn't have a proper name yet. So I think if Nintendo wants to send out the Wii U, it looks like they're going to try to do it with a bang. And then there was the quote-unquote leak of what the NX controller would look like. And basically, it looked kind of weird. It had no apparent buttons, it just had 2 thumbsticks on the sides, it looked strangely wide. Well, but then again, the Wii U gamepad was pretty wide anyway, but no apparent buttons and what looked like an LCD screen on the surface of the controller displaying stuff from the gameplay itself. We actually saw 2 apparently leaked photos of this so-called controller. And in a similar case to the faked Rayman leak for Smash 4, this leak was debunked by the so-called leaker himself. But I was in a discussion with some friends on why this sort of controller might be interesting not in the near future, but maybe in like several years by now. We talked about this thing called haptic feedback. Well, it's like none of us really know all the specifics, but the idea is buttons appearing on the controller via context, and if it were possible to create a controller where buttons would raise and lower depending on the context of the game, that would be something interesting in the future. I don't think the technology is, well, not saying the technology isn't there yet, but I don't think it's to a point where you could incorporate it into a video game controller at this point and have it sell properly. Well, profitably anyway. But it would be interesting if in the future we could have a controller like that. And make it work, of course. Anyways, speaking of the... anyways. I'm close to getting done with top 6 least favorite gym leaders. Hopefully I'll be able to have that tomorrow, and I'm actually debating whether or not to do a live stream tomorrow as well, in order to raise money for the victims of the terror attacks in Belgium. If I do, it'll probably be in the afternoon, and not the evening. But the game I'm gonna play when I start doing live streams for Belgium is I'm gonna start off with Pokémon Tournament because that's a recent release and it's relevant right now. I've been having a lot of fun with it, honestly. Anyways, for my question of the week, what would you like to see from the NX hardware? As always, leave your answers in the comments below. I'll pick my favorite answers and feature them on next week's episode. Here are last week's winners. And with that, time for the Fourth Wall Mailbag. As always, let's review how to send me questions. Go to my channel, click the About tab, hit the Send Message button, send me your questions, and I'll pick the ones I have the best answers to and feature them on next week's episode. First question this week comes from Alan Wright, who asks, do you have plans to do a top 10 least favorite Pokemon? At this point, I would say no, because I really don't have a seething hatred of, like, any Pokemon in particular. Though there are ones I think are gimmicky and really don't work that well. Unless you're the kind who looks for every possible way to make any Pokemon viable. I.e. Pimp Knight. But some Pokemon I really don't like are Love-Disc, Unknown, Burmy, and Furfrou, and the Swirlix line, among others. Next question comes from Arablier, who asks, has the League of LoL officially been cancelled? No, it is not! It's just that I and the members of the group have had a lot of things going on, but I actually have a couple games recorded and hoping to edit them in the near future. So, you can expect more from League of LoL hopefully soon. I say hopefully because you never know what's going to come up. Next question comes from Deadlock Drago, who asks, what are your least favorite monsters in the Monster Hunter series? Well, let's see, there's the Gobel from Tri for being a bad underwater boss and having those annoying spikes and having everything just bounce off of him when his spikes are puffed up. Also the paralysis, and the fact that you fight him in probably, in my opinion, the worst hunting environment in the game. That being the flooded forest with its cramped areas and murky water. Let's see, there's the Giganox because you fight him in the cold weather, which drains your stamina unless you got hot drinks, and all the poison you could ever not want. To bring up something that the Trees of Prentice brought up, 2 words. Flexing party. Let's see, for Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, there is the Black Gravios for being such a damage sponge. I mean, seriously, most of my blades bounce right off of him. Unless you have a really sharp blade, it's going to bounce right off of him unless you do a jumping attack. And the Kizu. Oh boy, the Kizu. I mean, its movements are annoying, and the fact that it can shock you from a great distance means you're going to have a bit of trouble if you're not prepared for it. On the plus side, there's an interesting touch about the Kizu. It has no music. You see, in the Monster Hunter series, boss music starts up when a monster sees you. The Kizu is blind. Therefore, it can't see you and senses you through sound, and therefore it has no boss music. Nice touch on Capcom's part. Oh, by the way, I'm glad they're bringing back the Lagadris for Monster Hunter Generations and not the water combat, so that you're going to be able to fight the thing completely on land. Thank you, based Capcom. Next question comes from Misfortune Darkrai, who asks, so, seeing that you're a huge fan of Maximilian's Boss Rage series, what is one boss you want to see him fight in the series? For quite some time now, I have wanted him to face Kane R. Heinlein from Garo Mark of the Wolves. Since Rock Howard from Garo was the central player in Max's Boss Rage episode against God Rugal and Capcom vs. SNK 2, I've wanted him to take on the game where Rock came from. Even though we haven't really seen Max do an SNK Boss Rage yet, because, let's face it, SNK is infamous for its fighting game bosses. But from what I understand, Kane is actually one of the more fair bosses in the SNK line. From what I've heard, Grant's actually more of an SNK boss than the actual final boss. In any case, that's one episode I'd love to see him do. Let's hope that happens. Final question this week comes from Jonathan Kimmel, who asks, may I take your hat, sir? I think it needs replacing anyway.